You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artists magazines at CIAartists.com. Endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide. You can hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network while on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile app available for your smartphones, smart TVs, and cars. And when you download Stitcher to hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network, you have a chance to win some money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in the App Store. Download it. It's free and just takes a few seconds. Then, during registration, hit the promo code box and enter RCRN to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episode of the shows will be waiting for you in your favorites. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too. Always available to you on demand. No syncing. It's Stitcher Smart Radio. Don't forget to enter promo code RCRN when you register at www.stitcher.com/RCRN.
Okay, welcome again to Your Money and Your Mindset. I am your host, Lo Wai Tan, and as usual, I bring you interesting and fascinating guests to talk about money, health, wealth. It's all together in one. It's not just about the money in the bank, it's total wealth. And today we're going to concentrate on the money aspect in terms of businesses. So you people out there who own businesses or run businesses, or you have employees beside yourself, as most people do, there is a very large percentage of businesses or small or medium-sized enterprises which have less than maybe 10 to 15 employees, are basically the backbone and the mainstay of most economies, and certainly it is here in Australia. Now, as a business owner, you know that your people, good people, precede profits. So basically it's a case of making sure you pick the right person for the right job. And any organization will only function like an well-oiled machine if you have the right people. Don't you agree? Now, it sounds very logical, but the stats lately just are very surprising in the sense that they say, in the U.S. anyway, the Department of Labor, there was a survey where it said 50% of all employees will leave their job within the first 6 months of being hired, which is not very good in terms of longevity. Once you've trained a person, they decide they don't want to stay and they go. It's costly in so many ways, right? And Ride Management apparently had a new survey recently, and here are the stats. It says 86% of employees polled said they plan to actively look for new positions in 2013. So we're talking about employee retention. People stay because they like you and they like the job, and whatever they're doing is fulfilling. So my guest here, a very special guest today, is Beverly Flaxington. Now, she is a certified professional behavioral analyst because it's all about behaviors, right? She's also a career and business advisor. She's written lots of books on business and financial books, like the award-winning Understanding Other People, The 5 Secrets to Human Behavior, and we're going to be delving into her latest book, Make Your Shift, the 5 most powerful moves you can make to get to where you want to go. So welcome, Beverly. How are you?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here tonight.
Okay, we're very excited. So let's get straight into this aspect. But my viewers want to know something about you first. So can you just give us an idea of who Beverly is?
Sure. Well, I did spend a lot of my career in the corporate realm, and I worked for a large insurance company and went up the ladder to running large groups of people, hundreds of people. I ended up working for an individual that I did not feel was ethical. I questioned a lot of the decisions that were being made, and so I decided at that point to leave my corporate job and start my own business. So for the last many, many years, I've run my own consulting business, sales and marketing consulting, but we do business building, we do executive coaching, we do training. And alongside that, I went back to school in the sense that I became a college professor. So I teach 3 classes now. I have over 200 students. And then in my free time, I write books and and raise my children.
Okay, all in a very casual manner, of course. That's not okay. That was interesting. Now we're going to talk about really, in that sense, this book and the fact that if 86% of employees are saying we're going to be looking for a new position, and we're talking about this time in the economic cycle where it is still precarious. Some people would be hanging on to their jobs, but the survey says that, in fact, there are people who are willing to throw caution to the wind, so to speak, because they're dissatisfied with their current work situation. And you're the troubleshooter who comes in and fixes things, yeah?
Yes, and I think, when you opened, I have to say, I think you keyed on something that is missed oftentimes in businesses large and small, and that is that relationships in business and treating people well and knowing how to manage effectively, knowing how to lead, these are economic issues. So people can look at it and say, oh, we need to be nice to our employees, we have to treat our employees well, et cetera, et cetera. But this is economic. If you don't do it, if you don't learn how to hire the right people, motivate them, lead them, and then you lose them, that is a hit to the bottom line. And I feel that we don't look at it enough as an economic problem. And in fact, it is. So this isn't just about being nice to people. This is about good business.
Yeah, good business sense, because business owners, and this is quite apocryphal, but I've been told that a business that can run really, really well, like a franchise, once they change ownership, that same business can go downhill. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. And in fact, there's fascinating research that shows that most people will take a job because of the job. It's something that I want to be able to do, or I like the company, the environment. But the number one reason that most people leave a job is the boss. It's a relationship, which is really fascinating when you think about it. And just anecdotally, talking to people over the years, I would say that that's a lot of times the case. So here you've put so much effort into finding this right person, but then not managing them, not focusing on that relationship. It's a terrible waste. And like I said, I think it's an economic issue.
Okay, and that seems to be glossed over by lots of corporations, not just small and medium-sized enterprises, but even large multinational corporations. And that becomes obvious when the HR department, human resources, has this revolving door of people coming in and leaving, which can you actually put in terms of, so that the bean counters can appreciate this, how many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars is lost just by this very small but significant point that is missed in a year, in a financial year?
Well, there are some studies that say that it's billions of dollars that companies are losing from turnover. There's an interesting book called Top Grading. The gentleman that wrote it, Bradford Smart, did a survey and quantified what is the cost of, he talked about it as a bad hire, but it would be I bring someone in, it ends up not being the right person, and they leave within that 6 months to 2 years. And his research shows that it's anywhere from 8 times to 15 times to, in some cases, 27 times salary. So think about that, and especially you're talking about a small business, maybe there's 5 people. That is serious dollars that are being lost because the right person isn't coming in, we're not treating them well once they're there. and then we're losing them after having invested so much money in bringing them on into our organization.
Okay, so do you actually sit down with, let's say, the head of the company and say, really, by and large, you're the problem?
That is the more challenging part of the work that we do. Oftentimes what we do is we do try to show people that are leading a firm a little bit more what I might call objectively the data. So we do a lot of work with behavioral styles, for example. So I might have someone that runs a company and they're very frustrated with one of their employees. And of course they want me to come in and they want me to fix the employee. And then I'll find that what the problem really is the boss. It may be the way the person is treating the employee or communicating with them. And it's just a mismatch, you know. So it's not all on the boss, but it's a mismatch. So we'll show them behavioral style. You know, maybe the boss is a very assertive, aggressive, get it done fast kind of person. And this person they've hired in is more slow, more thoughtful, more methodical. They need time to think about things. So we do a lot of work trying to show people that this is where some of the differences lie. So it's not so much you're bad or you don't know what to do with this employee, but that we have these differences here. And then the same thing around values, motivators. You'll have a boss who maybe thinks ROI, return on investment, is critically important. And employees who feel like, no, it's all about how you treat us. So it's differences rather than someone's good and someone's bad.
All right. So, like you say, the key word is mismatch. And so can you tell viewers here, let's say, who are business owners looking to hire now, and they are not the sole decision maker in the process of vetting potential candidates, what is it that you got to look for beyond the, how some people will say, I just like the way they dressed. And it's like, that is not the reason to hire a person, because first impressions, although they're important, do not tell the full story of how they're going to behave day in, day out within your organization. Yes?
Such an important point. And I will say again, when they study this, they see that many, many people make a hire based on something they can't even put their finger on. I just like that person. I felt good about that person. So a couple things to try to overcome that. One would be first to get very clear about what success looks like in this role. So especially with the small business people that you're talking to, I might decide I need someone in the firm, but I'm not really clear what do I need. I just know that I need another body around here. So I have to be clear, what will success look like? What do I want this person to do? What will be the requirements of this role? So the first step is me as the hiring person getting very, very clear what's important to my firm, what's important to me in making this choice. The second thing is making sure not only do I have a clear job written, but I'm also looking at those behavioral pieces that we just talked about. So if, for example, I need someone who's very data-oriented, very good at quality control and crossing the T's and dotting the I's, making sure things are right, I probably don't want to bring in a sales type, right? So things like this.
So basically, I've been told too that people hire people just like them when in fact it's somebody quite opposite that they require in that particular aspect, the department of the business, to make it run. The boss might be really good as a people person and going out and shaking hands and building rapport, but they've got terrible, terrible track records with following up, getting contracts written and so forth. But the hiring is like, oh, that guy's just like me. We get on like a house on fire. I'm sure it'll be great. But like you say, it doesn't work that way, does it?
Well, it doesn't, except for maybe the role that you have is you need somebody that's like you. This is the part that's so difficult for so many people, is taking that step back and thinking about, what do I really need here? Sometimes I need, especially in a small business, I need to hire someone who's really my complement, right? They're different from me. They're doing all the things that I don't do. But look, in other cases, maybe I want to bring somebody in that I want to mentor and is going to be my successor. And in that case, maybe I do want somebody who's cut from the same mold that I am. So it's really challenging yourself to think about what do you really want and sticking to that and not getting influenced by, oh, I know that I did all this work to figure out what the role was, what success looks like, what I need, but now this person came in and I just really like this guy or gal. I think I'm just going to go with that person. You've got to make sure that you're holding yourself a little bit accountable in the interest of what's best for your business.
Okay, yeah, because some bosses can be literally loose cannons in their own organization, isn't it?
We see a lot of this. And unfortunately, again, I think that what's difficult is that they don't realize how much of it is backfiring on them. A lot of times when I do have to give feedback, and I do to clients we might have that, some of what they're doing might be the problem, I'll say to them, this is where I put on my card, Grim Reaper. I have to come and give you feedback you're not going to want to hear. But I try to say to them, but this isn't about me telling you what you're doing wrong. This is about me really wanting to see this organization succeed. And in the interest of your success, there's some things I just would like you to think about that maybe we could do differently. And you know what? Most people who really do want the thing to turn around will listen to that. They may not like it. None of us like to get negative feedback about what we're doing. But when we get a chance to think about it and how it's impacting us, I find that good leaders and good managers do want to know and be given that opportunity to change.
Okay, you hit on something really interesting there in the sense that they ultimately want the organization to succeed or be profitable. I mean, who doesn't? But they are in their own way, so to speak. So the name of my show is Money and Mindset, okay? And really it is about the mindset of the business owner or the person in charge that impacts negatively, in this sense, on the bottom line of a company. So when you see that, and you, like you say, you got to do the Grim Reaper thing and say, listen, folks, this is not palatable, but it's necessary if your business is supposed to thrive. So how do you go about then bringing the attention to the business owner and saying, okay, tell me, what do you really feel about the business? In a sense, have you identified so much with it that any criticism of the business is a criticism of me?
So one of the things that I've learned to do over time, and we use in our business a lot, is something we call the SHIFT model. And we trademarked this because we've used it so many times with so many people with great success. And it gets at one of the things that you're keying on here, so I just want to talk about one piece of it. But that is that there is a place to do what we call highlight the obstacles, but then categorize them. Because what I find, LaJuan, is you have people who say, I don't want to hear the bad news. Don't bring me a problem. Just bring me the solution. And the problem is that there's a chokehold on their business as a result, because the problems need to come to light. They need to be dealt with. So we frame it to say, look, every business has obstacles. It can be the people. That's about the human factor, which we also talk about. But there's lots of things going on in the business. So instead of you as owner feeling like, gosh, you've got to take it all on and you've got to fix yourself and you've got to change, let's look at what those obstacles are and then categorize them. What can you control? What can you influence? And what's out of your control? And when you start to turn it, I just believe in bringing people more objective kind of data, because it is personal and it does feel like you're attacking me. And so to the degree we can say, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this more objectively, more fact-based, you'd be surprised at how people then will say, oh, okay, well, that I can deal with. So you're not asking me to change who I am. You're asking maybe to look at this a little bit differently. And people are able to do that.
And you've got a way with, tactfully of saying that, but there is there is a requirement for behavioral change, because like we were discussing off air beforehand, that some of these people might feel threatened because they're insecure about their own position, that they then treat their subordinates badly, not out of spite, but because out of fear for their own, and they become defensive about their own position. Is that right?
Without a doubt. And a lot of times, I think, and we talk about it as identifying the human factor, and that's another step in our process, because I do believe, and you want to talk about a money mindset, success mindset, all of these things, in many cases, we think it's everything else out there, but we're our own worst enemy. And so understanding my own motives, if I'm the boss or I'm the owner, or if I'm someone who works there, trying to get an understanding of, what else could be going on with that boss? As they yell at me, could it be that it's this person really is insecure? And this is the way that this plays out with them. So I think we need to maybe adopt a little bit for ourselves and for others, kind of that learning of, what's underneath. In psychology, people will call it the presenting problem, right? You go into a psychologist and you say, I have this problem, this is what it is, and that's what you present. But 9.5 times out of 10, your problem is really rooted somewhere else, and that's how it manifests. I'm a hypnotherapist also. We see it in hypnosis too. Weight loss isn't usually about eating better. It's about something else, messages that someone has accumulated or an experience they've had. So same thing applies in business. It's what else is going on underneath that we're not talking about, and you need to get that to the surface sometimes.
Yeah, and do you find that with male business owners, they're more defensive as opposed to female business owners, or is there a 50-50 split between the two?
I have to be really honest and say that in my experience, it doesn't cleanly divide along gender lines. I have had some of my more frustrating situations with women who are just clearly so much of the problem and not willing to see how it's playing out. And some men who have been so open and have embraced feedback and really have said, help me see, what do I need to do differently here? And then the opposites in both camps, men who are very resistant and women who've been. So I have to say, I do tend to work in an industry that's largely male-dominated, although we've worked with many, many women as well. And I can't find a gender component on that one, truth be told.
All right, it's nice to know that people are equally neurotic.
Exactly.
But now you touched on something very interesting too, that the boss needs to have some degree of self-awareness. Now, if that's not a happening thing, it is the employee who's got to have that self-awareness. Like you said, if he's yelling and starting to look purple in the face because he's upset about something, it's not about me. It's just him playing something out. Now, as the employee, then what can you do in terms of giving somebody advice or helping them to stay on in the job despite having a boss that's a bit unreasonable?
Juan, this is something that if we can get this message out to people that are watching this is such a key thing, I think, where we want other people to change. And in the business realm, I want my boss to be a different person. And what we have full control over is we can change our reactions to people. We can change our actions, but we are very limited in our ability to actually change that other person. So if someone's listening and says, you know what, this boss is very difficult to deal with, so what choices do I have? So there's a couple of things I would say to think about. First of all, this idea of becoming a little bit more data-oriented, fact-oriented. Sometimes I call it being a detective or being an interested observer. So the boss comes in and starts to yell, and we tend to get triggered, right? It's the normal response. I hate it when this guy or this gal yells at me. I want to respond. If you can know that you get triggered and instead kind of take that, okay, here this person goes again. I wonder what goes on with this guy. Wow. why does he feel the need to yell like this? I wonder if he feels like this is useful. And you almost start to have this dialogue with yourself that you're observing what's happening instead of getting really sucked into it. It's so interesting because just that lack of response that you've always given that person can oftentimes be the thing that stops them in their tracks. So that's one thing. Another thing is I call it kind of making a different story up. So instead of the boss hates me, the boss is a jerk, the boss is always yelling at me, you could literally turn it around to say, this person has a problem. Wow. Now, again, you're not saying this to the boss, of course, but in your mind, I really need to have some empathy here. I wonder what that's about. And you're kind of looking at the person in a different way and trying to take the sting out of their behavior a little bit. Because the truth of the matter is, it is just a job, and my favorite saying, this too shall pass, and at some point this person will be out of your life. So kind of figure out what can you learn from it. Now, people listening will say, that's terrible, this person shouldn't be allowed to treat me this way, et cetera, et cetera. And Luan, to that I say, you can continue to kind of have that resistance about it, but you're going to be miserable. So then you're kind of left with, well, you should just quit. But play with it for a little bit. Just see if you can approach the person differently. It's amazing how all of a sudden the emotion, the sting, will go out of the whole relationship.
All right, so we're just going to take a slight left turn here, and you're talking about the relationship, and the way I see relationships about on an energetic level, it's about the giving and the taking. And so energetically, somebody's spitting out all this pretty negative energy, and you're saying within yourself as the employee, you have the capacity to just, in a sense, neutralize it or not create a bubble, so to speak, so that it doesn't affect you emotionally, that you can still go to work with that person. And funnily enough, your colleague next to you gets really upset with the whole thing because everybody gets yelled at, but you're okay with it. So what are the sorts of practices a person can adopt and integrate into their lives so that they can see their boss with compassion?
I love this. And I love the term that you use, the bubble, because that really is what's happening. That person is still ranting and raving, and truth be told, it may still be very unpleasant, but what you're trying to do is build a little bit of a shield so that your emotional response, the negativity that you may have given over to that person in the past, isn't fueling the whole thing. So then you're left both feeling like, ick, what a terrible place this is to work. So there's one thing I love to say to people, and that is, when you have someone like this, hey, let's say it could be a family member, right? But we're talking about the workplace, but this could be anywhere in life. You have someone, and they always cause you pain, emotional pain. Well, first of all, you know that. Likely it happens every time you deal with this person. So the boss, if he hasn't erupted in a while, in this scenario we have going here, he's likely to do it at some point. So what I have to do is I have to prepare, right? So a few different kinds of coping skills that I like to talk about. So first of all, we want to recognize the fact that we are triggered by the behavior. So we want to be prepared. Instead of stepping into the dance and responding to them the way we always have, we want to have another choice for when that trigger takes place. And that can be anything from, I've been practicing deep breathing, and so now this person is yelling, and while they're yelling, I am literally picturing, as we talk about in hypnosis, the blue balloon that fills up in my stomach as I breathe in, picture it as I breathe out. Now, the boss doesn't know I'm doing this, but my attention has gone to my breath. I am breathing here. Or we'll talk about creating other kinds of triggers. So maybe you have practiced, and it could be anything that works for you. It could be meditation. It could be going out for a walk. Whatever works for you that calms your body. You practice a trigger so that you in your mind are imagining that calm state for you. And it can be other things. So some people can say, I'm not good at something like that. When I'm in the moment, I'm frozen. Well, maybe then remove yourself. the boss is yelling and you say, I'm so sorry, but I need to use the ladies' room. I'll be back in a minute. Right? Break the connect. Why don't we feel like we can do that?
Wow,
Break
that's amazing. Yeah, rather than the deer in the headlights. By the way, Bev, we're being featured on Blog TV, so would you like to say hi to the people on Blog TV?
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so you viewers are here, and you're obviously tuning in. And how can you actually turn that around and make them consciously aware that what you put out is what you get back?
Well, the truth is, I'm not sure that we can ever make someone aware. What we can do is we can take some steps to perhaps be able to be almost sometimes a mirror to them or a reflection back to them. A lot of times how I will handle somebody who seems as though they want to stay stuck is to start asking some questions. Is the behavior you're using getting you what you want? Is the response that you're getting what you were hoping to get? Could there be a different way to put some different energy out there and get something back in return? Now, I believe that you do have to, I call it the aha. And I think the mistake we make is that we tend to want to get someone to see the light, right? So we talk to them and we tell them this is what they should do. But I think that aha often comes from asking them the questions and allowing them to see something inside where they make a different choice and say, well, maybe I do want to learn more about that, or maybe there is something to that. So I'm a big proponent of the questions because I think people do have to come to it. That awareness, that desire to look at it differently and get a different response. There's that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different response. So a lot of times I will say to people, do you like what you have here? I mean, are you happy with what you're getting? Because if you're happy, we have no reason to talk. But if you're not happy, then let's look at what's gone wrong. So I think that probing and that questioning is a really good way. But look, Luann, the truth of the matter is there's plenty of people who want to believe it's somebody else that's the problem. And it's forces out there. And they don't want to see that they have as much ability to influence as they do.
All right, and also it sort of leads into the next question. When you're talking to these people who are, feeling they're in an intractable position, do you find that sometimes you feel as though you're talking to a 5-year-old?
Well, it's kind of funny. I have a client who once told me that what I was actually doing in life was trying to teach everyone how to be more like a 5-year-old because I want people to ask questions, the why and what's underneath that and, learning. So there's an aspect where I think we'd be better off if we could get back to a little bit of that inquisitiveness and that curiosity that we have as children. But in many cases, yes, there's that sense of the tantrum or the my way or, I want it to be the way I want it to be. And the problem is, as I do try to say to people, but what if we all took that position and we disagree on the way it should be? That makes for a very difficult living situation together. So we do all have to be able to at least understand where the other person is coming from, if not sometimes give a little bit in those relationships. But I will go back to saying people, I think, have to make a choice. Am I happy with where I am, what I have, how it's working? If you are, great. If you're not, then you do have to think about and ask, what can I control? What could I do differently?
That's very interesting. And you said asking powerful questions will get to the aha moments. So, look, I'm a fan of the saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So when you have your clients going through this process of gently in asking those questions, do you find that they come up with very unhelpful and really self-limiting beliefs around money that they picked up when they were kids?
Oh, without a doubt. In fact, I think so much of, let's go back even to that example of the boss. I mean, is that boss probably living out something, the guy that was yelling, the way he was treated as a child or what he saw his parents do? I think so many of us have developed these beliefs and these ways of looking at life and the way we think about ourselves, and based on the messages that we heard from our parents, what we might have lived with. And money, I think, is a big one. You think about, I once read, and I'm very conscious of this with my children. So when you have children, you're germ phobic, right? There's germs everywhere. So one of the main places you get germs is coins and dollar bills. And think about the number of people that touch those. So we're taught money is dirty, quote unquote. And you think about it, what the parents trying to say is a lot, and that's what I try to say to my kids, a lot of people have touched that coin, so make sure you wash your hands after you touch it. It's not the money that's dirty, it's the germs on the money. But it's things like this where we don't even realize that we've been given these messages and that somehow, or that money is bad, or a lot of times I'll have situations with people who are in business and they don't have that ROI value. They value something else. So they think earning a lot of money is, I'll use the term, money grubbing. As long as I can just get what I need, more than that is money grubbing. And I'll try to say, but you want to help people think about what you can do with additional money. It doesn't mean you're just going to hold on to it. You can let go of it too. So I think you are right on that we do need to look at a little bit more about what did my parents believe? What did they teach me? How did they talk about this? And how can I shift the way I talk to myself about it so I'm not inadvertently falling into that trap?
Yeah. Do you then say to those people who say, what do I need extra money for? One thing that comes to mind is that you can employ more people. And that's another person who's not on the dole queue, who's not at the unemployment line.
Well, and the one that I struggle with the most, that I hear a lot is, people will, and I'm sure it happens in Australia, we've seen it here over the last few years in the U.S., where the economic conditions have not been good. And so there's a lot of sense of I'm at the mercy of something, that if the economic engine doesn't turn, then I can't possibly be successful. The job market is terrible, or if I'm a small business, the opportunities aren't out there. And I think we know that there are lots of situations of people who thrive under difficult conditions. So how can that be? If the conditions are what cause the difficulty, how can it be that anyone is succeeding? So really challenging yourself to say, where am I holding myself back? Key area to start, at least.
Yeah, and basically, if anybody's listening to this and it resonates with you, how can they get in touch with you, Bev, so that they can get their money mindset straightened out?
The best place is probably my website, which is thehumanbehaviorcoach.com, because so much of what we're talking about here has to do with human behavior. So it's thehumanbehaviorcoach.com.
Okay, and also in terms of, let's say, a business owner saying, look, I get what you're saying, yet in my immediate area, there aren't these sorts of people who've got the same outlook and mindset, and they're all whinging about how bad the economy is, but I want to see and I want to know that I can actually make a profitable business run in this current economic climate. So in that sense, we need to surround ourselves with people who are positive and have a can-do attitude. So what can you suggest to people in terms of getting together a mastermind group, let's say?
I love that. I'm such a big believer in this. You think about the water cooler talk, right? Or I go out to lunch with somebody, and I was feeling pretty good before, and then I had lunch with this person. I've come back. I didn't realize how terrible my life was. So this is a key area to be able to surround yourself, find people of like minds. I mean, I think that, and I will just say, I think when you put the intention out there, A number of years ago in my business, I had a lot of clients that I found to be very difficult in a lot of different ways. And I realized that my intention around it was not as positive as it should be. So I made an intention. I want to work with people that I genuinely like. I want to help them and have a professional relationship, but I want to genuinely like them. And I set that as a goal. And I have to say that even I am amazed sometimes when I go to a meeting with someone I work with, how I could live with these people. I love these people that I work with. They are genuinely people that I enjoy, that I feel are my friends, that are people that inspire me and help me to be the best that I can be. So I do believe a lot in just putting the intention out there that that's what you want and that that's what you're focused on. Talk to other people about it. Network in the area that you're in. Set a group up on LinkedIn and network and say, I want to create a success-minded group. Things like this. But it is about that intention of wanting it to come about.
Okay, you use the word intention. So when you say intention, do you actually write it down like a goal and
Yes.
be specific about what you want? No wet blankets, basically. Everybody's got to be reasonably positive, yeah, and very encouraging and supportive of everybody else in the group.
Absolutely. I call that specifying your desired outcome. Painting the picture of what is it that you want. You know, we are so often, and we don't realize it, we're thinking about what we don't want. We're thinking about what we want to move away from. We're thinking about when things change. And we're not really painting that picture of, well, what do you want? You know, I want to make more money. I want a lot of money. Well, what kind of money? How much money? Where do you want that money to come from? What kinds of things do you want to do with that money? You know, the more you can really invest yourself, I'll use a money term, in really painting that picture, you know, really getting clear on what it all looks like, the more drawn you will be to it. So I think a really important first step.
Okay, so this is sort of overlapping into that realm of the esoteric law of attraction type scenario, isn't it?
Well, it is, which I always feel that I live in two worlds because my corporate clients are very buttoned down corporate, and then of course my my other side of life is very much, you know, what can be. So I'm always trying to pull those two together and figure out how do we teach people who may not have learned to think a little bit differently, that there is a whole other world to think about out there.
Okay, right. So this is they're not, to me, they're not separate. They can be integrated, and it's to be open-minded enough to accept and then put it into your working life, your business life, your personal life, that it's where it really, really works. So this is where we touch on what I call success rituals, because part and parcel of the metaphysics is you have these actions that you take regularly, daily. So what are yours to keep you on track to be successful in your professional and your personal life?
So I have a few that I have developed over the years. I am a big proponent. I do write my goals down. If we moved the camera, you would see that all around me are very clear statements of my desired outcomes, as well as pictures and whatnot to remind myself. But then I also am very disciplined about setting the goals that I want to get to, and then working to figure out how are those going to really fit into my daily life. So what's going to impact what? So in other words, if I care about spending time with my children, but I also want to take on a new project, how are those two going to impact one another? So I've really learned not to just look at one goal, but to try to look at the whole of me, all of who I am, and all of the pieces that fit together. And so I was never a planner or somebody who was really good with writing everything down, but I've become very good at it so that I can understand where am I going to be able to find time for different things. And what was very important to me was I always would have an attitude, because I'm very busy and I have my children, that there were passions that I had and that those would have to wait until everything else was done. And so I decided I wanted to integrate my passions. And so I do things like once a week. I'm very big in animal rescue. So once a week I go and I clean dog cages at the shelter. We take in foster animals that live with us while they're waiting for homes. I, walk my dogs. So it just became very important to start to pull pieces into my life of what I value and what I care about, and to make that all work.
Okay, so it's basically a holistic approach that it's not all about business, or it's not all about the family to the point where you've lost your identity within being, quote unquote, a mother. You're still a human being with your own wants and needs and intellectual pursuits that need to be filled, yeah?
Absolutely. And, it's funny because I do hear women talk about balance, that elusive balance. And I think that's a setup. I was a big gymnast when I was younger, and I can't help but always get the sense of the balance beam that you used to have to, very carefully walk on. And if you stepped the wrong way, you were on the mat. I don't think we can get balance. I think that we have to look at all of the pieces of who we are and what we care about, and we just have to get somewhat disciplined and thoughtful so that we're not always so reactive, but that we are more steering our boat where we'd like to go, and always feeling like we're fighting the storm and we're just trying to get it to, stay upright. So I think that consciousness that you talk about, being conscious about it, is a very key piece to help you shift how events unfold.
Okay, so you're actually touching on what I consider a spiritual aspect of living, and some people will dismiss that totally. I actually believe very much in the spiritual aspect of everything in my life and integrate that in. So do you do things like spend time on your own meditating or contemplating?
So I've found that for me, so I'm deeply spiritual, and I've found for me the type of meditation and thoughtful time is more, I like to get out and walk. And so what I do is I actually practice, walking and just seeing the thoughts that are coming and emptying my mind. And so I've not been as good at sitting quietly, but when I'm moving, I'm able to do that. Another practice that I have, and I attribute this, I listen to a spiritual teacher called Guy Finley, and he talks about deliberately slowing down. And so that's when I practice a lot, when I'll find myself, I'm rushing out the door for a meeting, or the kids have, called me and said, you've got to pick me up right away. And the immediate reaction is, rush to it. And I just deliberately, with thanks to one of the talks I once heard him say, I slow it down. And it's just amazing how differently everything looks when you do that. So I try to do those throughout the day.
Okay, so it's called, I think the term is mindfulness. Be deliberate in everything you do, including making a cup of coffee and tasting the coffee rather than shoving a donut and coffee down your gob and you're out the door. So this deliberate mindfulness is your type of meditation, which, well, folks out there in Blog TV land, that might appeal to you rather than the other sort, which is to sit quietly, which is what I do, because, it's just nice to have that stillness. Whereas for you, this works for you, and it's a practice you can integrate into your life, and nobody has to know.
Well, that's the fun, is that I will sometimes be, with someone or doing something with my children, and maybe the pace is getting very frenetic because somebody's got to be at a dance class and another one has to be dropped off here and something else is going on there. Meantime, I have a client who's waiting for me to call them back. And, of course, I also teach, so there's 200 students sending me emails, and, and it will start to build. And right in the middle of that, I can decide, I'm going to slow down here. I'm going to slowly take a look through these emails. I'm going to slowly respond. And you do get this realization, it will all get done, and there's absolutely no need to give out that kind of energy. So I think it's actually a wonderful practice for busy business people, because I think it helps me be more effective at what I'm doing instead of haphazardly just running from thing to thing.
Yeah, so really it's something an employee who's getting yelled at can actually do in the course of being yelled at, so that they're there but they're not there, kind of.
Exactly. And I've had, I told you the story about the client, so I'll be honest, I haven't had one like this in a few years, but I did have a number of them that were yellers. And I just used to think of it as, well, this will be a challenge. Is this a client that I can make happy? Because this person is just furious for whatever it might have been. Partially something perhaps we did, partially something that was their history. So it's funny because those people in every case, if I wanted to give a reference, would be the people that would say, the most wonderful things about us. So if you can keep yourself calm and let yourself focus on what's really happening here with this person, you may actually find that you'll have a friend, because not enough people are empathetic and compassionate, and we really gravitate to those people who are.
That is a very salient point, and makes you unfireable.
I will say we've been very blessed. I do not take full credit, but everyone we work with comes back time and time again, and we've been very blessed. I love what I do. I feel very lucky to get up every morning, so I'm very thankful.
Yeah, and you're right. You're saying that people will gravitate towards, it's almost like there's a storm out there and they will gravitate towards a person who is basically exuding calm, peace, and common sense.
I love that. I might make that our new tagline. Calm, peace, and common sense. You would love this, though, how many times someone will say, especially if, let's say, we're doing coaching or we might be doing a meeting and we're talking to people beforehand, and they will say, it just feels so good to have someone understand me and listen to me. And that always makes me so sad. I mean, I'm happy that we can be that, but so sad that they're not getting that anywhere else in their work life. And we're that one place that they can come and talk about what's going on and feel like someone's understanding.
Yeah, it's like almost like a refuge where you can just escape for a little while. So as a takeaway for business owners, do you think, if anything else, if they stopped yelling for a minute and all they did was listen, shut their mouth and open their ears, it would actually increase the retention rate of their employees?
Listening, and I think listening with that active desire, I want to learn, I want to understand what obstacles my employees are up against, and I don't have to take on those obstacles as being a reflection that I'm wrong or I'm bad or I've done something. I can take them as facts and data that give me something to work with in my business, so that we can all be more successful. It's a mind shift. It really is just a mind shift. Makes a huge difference, though, I think, in that business owner's ability to have a breakthrough and change things.
And so would you actually run courses of the business owner with their employees together, or would you do that separately?
So most of the time what we will do is we will have the business owner there to do what we call a kickoff and say, I support this. We just had one last week. Wonderful session. Business owner came in and said, I support this, but I want you to be honest. I want you to work these things through. So we went through the session with the employees, and then the business owner came back in. And that person had to listen, and in a lot of cases, it was a woman, she began to get kind of defensive, and then we would say, this isn't about you, and she would say, you know what, that's true, I'm getting defensive, I need to drop my defenses, and they ended up coming out with an amazing plan to be able to put in place. So I think that's the best way to do it. Let the business owner leave, let the employees work some things out, but then come back and present it, realizing that now we're all collaborating together and we're all trying to figure out, how do we make this better? So I don't believe it should be on the person in charge solely. It's not on the employees solely. It's on those two groups working together to figure out how do we harness all our resources and make this work.
that is really the next step in the evolution, I think, of the corporate culture, which currently for many organizations is adversarial. There's management and there are the plebs, yeah? And twain shall never meet in the middle and be helpful to each other. You use the word collaboration. You think about it, it is an organization. Everyone wears the same uniform, ultimately.
And I think really, haven't you keyed on something? It's like the word mother-in-law, right? So, there's certain relationships that you look at and it connotes, why is it that boss and subordinate, boss and employee, we think of these as divided? These people are on the same team. They're all, in theory, striving for that same goal. So, building those bridges and figuring out how do we understand one another better and put plans in place we can work together, that only helps everybody, and it sure as heck helps the business.
Definitely, and there are organizations out there where people can model along the lines of how employees and employers interact so that you get the best possible outcome. So it's not pie in the sky theory, it actually works. And these are businesses that are very profitable, as you know, because you stepped in and out of those. So we're just running out of time at the moment, but I'd like one last question, and that would be really, when it's all that's said and done, what would you want to be remembered for? What is your legacy?
Well, I have to admit, the first thing I would say is that I raised children who are conscious, who are contributing, who are compassionate and joyful. So that is my number one goal. But second to that is that I have a deep desire to be able to take concepts and translate them into workable ways that people in business can take these ideas, use them, and be able to rise to their own level of effectiveness. So it's not me doing something, it's me giving someone a tool or a direction or an idea that they can take it and say, wow, I changed that, I did that. That's what I would love my legacy to be.
Oh, that's wonderful. So just as a final, where can we get your book, Make Your Shift? Could you just hold it up so that people know it's a real book?
Sure. Oh, well, I will, let's see if I can I get this in? Here we go. So there it is.
Okay.
It's a real book, although that's my media kit that I'm showing you. But it's on Amazon. It's actually a best-selling book. It did reach bestseller status. It's on Amazon.com and BN.com and all of that. It's also at my own website, and lots of other books that I've written as well on some of these topics.
Okay, so for all you out there who are interested to know more about what Beverly does, and obviously she's a bit of a miracle worker, a rainmaker, and she gets people happy again in their jobs, which is most important at this time, because I think at the end of the day, you got to enjoy what you do. Getting paid for it extra is kind of like the bonus, but in yourself intrinsically, knowing that you're satisfied with the quality of work you're doing, and you have workmates around you who think along the same way, and a boss who's supportive, that's the ultimate for lots of people, that they're in a happy working environment. So once again, just give us your website so that people know where to get in touch with you, Bev.
It's just thehumanbehaviorcoach.com, www.thehumanbehaviorcoach.com.
So it's thehumanbehaviorcoach.com.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Beverly, for spending this hour with us. It's been inspirational, and there have been lots of meaty, useful suggestions that people can implement straight away to increase their business profits and have happy employees. Start 2013 in a way that's never been before, and that is to not only increase profits but have happy employees, happy employers. So on that note, thank you very much, Beverly. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.ObesityHotline.com. You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com.